all our dear family and friends. And we're so happy that you're here to celebrate this great occasion, Mark's 80th birthday. We wish more than anything that Rhoda could be here. We're so happy Joel stopped in. My Makatanist passed away just 3 weeks ago, and there's a memorial service for her tomorrow. My son-in-law David and Karen's mother, where is Karen? She's not here for the moment. But we thank them all for finding it in their hearts to be here at this time. So, I'm just going to give you the shortened version, Mark, of This Is Your Life.
Now I'm in trouble.
No, I censored it. It's okay.
Oh, good.
Okay. Well, Mark, along with his parents and his sister, moved on to Daly Avenue in the Bronx, where I was already living, when he was 8 years old. Of course, I didn't know it at the time because I was still in a stroller. But anyway, after a while, a whole group of us started, as they said, hanging around together. And it was, you know, just the usual thing. We'd sit on the stoop. The boys would be playing stickball and marbles and the baseball cards. And being a tomboy, I was right in there with them. And somewhere along about when I was 12 or so, I became aware of this tall, dark, and handsome guy who was part of the group.
Wasn't me.
He had black hair then. Same as Eric's. Anyway, you know, we just started being paired off, and it was like that for a very long time. Okay. But what happened as people got a little bit more money, the kids, we'd go off to Stoopy's Ice Cream Parlor, which was fine, or the Chinese restaurant, or City Island, except that I was kosher and I didn't eat any of that food. But I would just go along anyway and watch these people eating lobsters and strange things, and having a glass of water or a Coke or something. Let's see now. Mark and my sister Doris were actually the same age, and they went to school together. They were in a lot of classes together, in PS 67 and PS 6, and then they went on to Evander Child's High School. I was a few years behind, so I had the same public school education, but I went to Theodore Roosevelt High School, which had the worst reputation, and my cousin Doris, who came Wednesday, and unfortunately this morning ended up at JFK Hospital. So, and she's okay, but they wanted to keep her overnight. So she's sorry because she knows a lot of you from way back. Well, let's see what happened then. Okay, after high school, Mark went to RCA Institute for a year, and then he was drafted. So, as I understand it, he applied for and was accepted to jumping school. And he wanted that because his mother was alone and it was extra money. How much extra did they pay?
It was an extra $50.
The only problem was, Mark said, he would watch these people coming back with broken arms and broken legs and broken everything. So he called his mother and said, "Do you mind if you don't get that extra $50?" And of course she said okay, and then he went for radar training. Excuse me, I'm not used to war rating.
The first one was the paratroopers.
That's funny.
Okay, eventually Mark came home on leave, and we said goodbye to him because he was off to Korea with his company. Well, as he was on the dock in the state of Washington, his name was called out, and he got sealed, what was it, a high confidential, secret orders, and it ended up that he was to report to the Hanford Project. It was a secret installation in the state of Washington, which is where he spent the whole rest of his Army career. And they were refining plutonium for the A-bomb. which was a little scary. So during that time, we only knew that he was in the United States, but we didn't know where he was or what he was doing. And I would write in care of a post office box to the Army. I don't remember what it was. It was an Army post office box, and then he would get the mail. Now, his mail to me came highly censored. Half of the letters would be blacked out.
Oh, come on.
True?
Yeah.
Hey, Mark.
Describe any of those.
Just as a point of information, many years later, Mark was contacted, as were a lot of those people, to ask about his health and that of our children, Lisa and David, Lisa and Eric, to see if they were healthy, because there was a high degree of radiation sickness. Well, thank God we were okay. And thank God Mark got those orders, because almost all of the people in his company did not return from Korea. So most probably none of us would be here today if he had gone overseas. Okay, well, when Mark was out of the Army, he went back to school under the GI Bill, and he bought a second-hand car, and we used to take rides. And, you know, we'd look for places to go. So one time I said, let's go up to Hopewell Junction. I'd like to see where my sister Doris worked at Camp Kindering, Open Circle Camp, every summer. So we took a ride up. Camp, for those of you who don't know, Workman's Circle Camp in Hopewell Junction is right next to Poughkeepsie, New York. And I looked around. I'm a city girl, right? My whole life I'm in New York City. I look around at all the cows and nothing else, and I say, why would anyone in his right mind ever want to live in this godforsaken spot? And little did I know that 2 years later, I would be living in this godforsaken spot. So, on September 2nd, 1956, Mark and I were married. And many of you know it was against my parents' wishes, because they were looking for a nice, religious, Orthodox yeshiva boy. And before that, they got Mel, whose last name was Eisenberg, so he was okay. Mel and Doris were married 2 years before we were. But anyway, Mel and my cousin Moshe, Doris's brother, who also is no longer with us, and he's truly was a yeshiva bacher. They stood up for me. You know, they said to my parents, his parents are Jewish, he's Jewish, end of story. So we got married, and when we were leaving for our honeymoon, which was to Canada, my parents walked us down, and my mother said to Mark, it was like all was forgiven. After all these years of fighting, Mel was laughing because he was there and he knows. And my mother said to Mark, take good care of her. And for 54 years, Mark has taken very good care of me. He took very good care of his mother, who was a widow. And he took very good care of my parents. When my father passed away in 1971, my mother lived for another 30 years. She died in 101. And Mark helped us really. He was very good to my parents. And one of the interesting things is Mark was well, Mel and Doris lived in New Jersey, but we lived in Poughkeepsie, which somehow or other, not on the map, but for some reason, Poughkeepsie is closer to New York than it was to the bridge. So Mark ended up being the designated driver of the deal, and that's where he learned to speak Yiddish. Because when Mel's parents would be in the car, or my parents, or my mother and my Aunt Rosie, they would just automatically revert back to Yiddish. And they'd be jabbering away, and I'd be translating. And the first expression that Mark really got to know was "Megay and Essen," which for my grandchildren we might not know means it's time to eat. So, okay. Let's see, I don't want to be too long about this.
9:34.
Meanwhile, the reason we got to Poughkeepsie, Mark's brother-in-law, John, and we're sorry that his sister from California can't be here, his niece and nephew. But, and of course, my nephew Stuart, Mel's son, Dale's brother. Okay, John said to Mark, computers are the way of the future. Well, Mark was looking where to work. And so he went with IBM. And I have to say that we had the golden years of IBM.
10 minutes.
6 years in 1 month. And Mark can tell you stories I won't tell. I used to have to wear the proper outfits, and they sang from a songbook every morning around the flag and different things. But we really had a very time, except I was a fish out of water.
Take it with you over there, put it on the table.
So I was finishing up in college. So I was neither here nor there. The people we met were all starting to raise families, and the people who I went to college with were my age, but you know, they were college students. So I was not very happy for 2 years. And then one day Mark comes home and says to me, someone I work with, I'd like you to meet them. They're from Brooklyn. They just got married. And she's not very happy here either. And that was the start of Marty and Jerry, which goes back a long, long time. In fact, so many people here from Poughkeepsie. All right, after a few years, we started looking for houses. And on one trip, Marty's brother Sam, who was 12 at the time, was with us. He was up visiting from Brooklyn. And the guy, we went to a house, and the guys boosted Sam up through a window. The window was open, but the door was locked. We went in, opened the door, let us in, and we looked around, and we really liked the houses. So we decided we were going to buy the houses. And then I had a call from Muriel Walbert, who I wish was down here now. I know she's coming soon. And Muriel said, we're going to be your next door neighbors. We're buying the house. By that time, we had met Betty and Hyde Kaplan also, who I worked with. And Muriel said, I know Phyllis and Dick Arnoff and Needy and Larry Grappa, and we arranged to all get together. So before we ever moved into our houses, which were, there were only 17 houses being built, and 7 of us were Jewish. We were in the little ghetto, which for Poughkeepsie you have to understand.
They didn't believe we were.
Anyway, I'm going to shorten things and just say we
12
had
minutes.
50 wonderful years there. We've been through so much together. And also from Poughkeepsie, we have our friends Helen and Lou Ritter. And we met them early on because Lou was our insurance agent.
Right.
So we met you right at the beginning. Yeah. And then we met Olga and Leon, her dear husband, Mark's dear friend, at ballroom dancing lessons.
Right.
And then through them we met Carol and Roy. And I have to say that we have to say happy birthday to Roy because for many years, Leon, Roy, and Mark all had birthdays within 4 days of each other, so it's Roy's birthday now. And we went out every year for a million years, and we continued it when we came to Florida. And we miss Leon. And every time they play a polka, Olga, I think of Leon because Leon and I always did the polka. Olga didn't want a polka, Mark didn't want a polka, and Leon would say, come on, Sandy, and we'd get up and polka. So, at any rate, things were going along. When we all moved into our houses in 1960, we came with our miniature schnauzer, Mr. Chips. Everybody remembers him. And some of the people had one child. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to leave out that we also then met Eileen and Ted at Temple Bethel, where we all belong. And let's see, Phyllis and Dick had one child. Needy had one child. Needy and Larry, should also rest in peace, had one child. And but I think most of us had no children, right? And of the 17 houses, there were a few of the other people had children. That was in 1960. In 1961, almost every single one of us had a baby.
It was in the water.
That's all you can do in Poughkeepsie. So going around, Marty and Jerry had Stephen, Phyllis and Dick had Michael, although they already had Mark.
15 minutes.
Needy and Larry had Barbie, although they already had David, and so on. Muriel and Irv had Beth, although they already had And this went up and down the whole street. So one year, we had enough people to
15,
to
2
the bus.
seconds.
And the next year, some more babies were born, including in November, Natalie. But before that, in May, guess who was born, William, in May of '61? Well, what am I saying? I left out my own son, Eric. It's because from the minute Eric was born, it was a challenge.
And he still is.
And he still is. He looks just like his dad, with different personalities. He never slept, he never ate. He always was baiting his mother.
I'm right there with you.
Right, Jill knows
When
about
did we
that.
move to Poughkeepsie? 56.
Okay.
56.
Lisa was born the next year,
Oh,
and Lisa
1956.
won, I don't know if Lisa, although I've told her this.
We
For
sold
the
the
month
house
of
4
May
years ago.
1962, William, your mother won a $100 bond
Oh, yeah.
from Vassar Hospital as the prettiest baby born that month.
Wow, Aunt Lisa. Yay.
And Lisa has always been the ideal daughter. And she
Sorry,
also
Eric.
had a challenge to follow right behind Eric, because everyone she met, teachers, kids, everyone knew Eric,
Sorry.
infamous Eric, and everyone said, oh, are you Eric's sister? I think they're only a year apart, and, you know, so Lisa did very well with that. She rose to the challenge. Okay, we're going to move along a little bit. Let's see. I just want to say that we are truly blessed with our children. We couldn't ask for more wonderful children. And then,
And grandchildren.
well, we're coming to that. Okay. So the next lesson was when David came into our family 16 years ago. Am I right?
Yes.
Along with his mother and dad, Joel and Rhoda, his sister Karen, Alyssa and Jason,
Scanning the
who were
table
both
now.
in college, so they couldn't be
Scanning,
here.
scanning, scanning.
And then less than a year later, Eric introduced us to Jill, and we were at, well, I mean, they got married, and when Lisa and David were getting married, the invitation to Eric read, and guess, because at the time we didn't really know Jill.
Stars.
But, oh, it's stars, we send our love.
Tell her we're at 17 minutes, 48 seconds.
I'll try to. My mother always would say to Eric, well, first of all, let me just say at their wedding, Eric got up to speak to everybody, you know, to the guests, and he said that, Marvin, you'll remember this, Marvin was there with Beverly, and Eric said about being grateful that everyone was there, especially Grandma. She waited 95 years to see one of her grandchildren get married. Okay. We were then blessed with Jill coming into the family, and what I was starting to say was, I'm sitting next to Mark, and Mom always used to say to Eric, well, are you ever going to get married? And he'd say, no, I haven't found the right one yet. Well, she said this to Eric at the wedding, and he said, well, Jill was at the wedding, right? And we had already met her, but here she is at the wedding, and then Mom says this to Eric. Eric said, maybe, and gave Mark the biggest kick under the table, and I said, that's it. And so, then they were married, and we're also blessed to have this wonderful family. Jill's parents couldn't be here, and her brother Robbie, and then later on, her sister-in-law Sharon and their 2 children. So we are truly blessed, and we've all just gotten together as one big family. It's just wonderful. It really is wonderful. I've got to speed on because this is getting to be too much.
1934.
Who said that?
I was gonna say it.
It's a big thing.
Oh, what I wanted to say is that what I also remember, Mark reminded me, not in this context, one time Eileen instead invited us over Passover dinner, and Ted made his own homemade gefilte fish, which we still remember. I mean, Mark does a lot of cooking, but he doesn't have much gefilte fish. I'm getting along here. Let's see what I do.
He just got his cell phone, so he doesn't know about vibrators.
You can't answer the phone.
Answering his phone.
Well, anyway,
It's his first cell phone.
That's his new cell phone.
What did that will say?
She's in her speech. You have to hang up. She's in her speech. Hang up, hang up. Hang up.
2038.
It's his first cell phone. He doesn't know.
We fell in love with it. And then about 16 years ago, we bought our house. And over
Doris.
there, we met our dear friends. Marilyn was So, coming to Poughkeepsie, we then met, well, first we met Glenda and Irving. Glenda and Mark were playing tennis together, and Mark came over in a fast shirt. And Glenda said, oh, you're from Vassar, I was just in Poughkeepsie. And so, with
She asked me
that,
what year I graduated.
turns out they were friends of the Amazons, of whom a lot of you know. So then we became very good friends. Then after we were there, we joined a Havara, and that's where we met Marlene and Barry Cobb, and Nancy, and Elliot Wilson, and the Wises, who are also not here. And then after a while, we were reacquainted with Sheila and Phil. Sheila is Marilyn's sister, and she's also the person who showed us our house at Coral Lakes, with which we fell in love. And Coral Lakes, we've been so happy there, and we right away met the Sweets, Arlene and Al. Actually, Mark was very brave, and he made the first phone call. Well, no, actually, you called, Arlene, and then Mark said, we'll get in touch with you on the Cape, because they also live on the Cape, and he did. And in between, we met Shirley. One of the years, we actually met Paul first, because we were frequent guests at Alder and Leon's. And and we met Paul first, and then we met Shirley. So I hope I haven't left anyone out of the group, just to say how we met everybody. Well,
She got everybody in there.
I also want to invite, I'm sorry, to say we're so delighted that Sylvia is now with Marvin, and so part of our family, and Sherman with Anita, and so it's great. And we really miss the family and friends who aren't here, but again, I just want to thank everybody and invite you back in 10 years when Mark's going to have
Yay! Mazel tov!
And now, just before we have dessert, I want to reintroduce my grandson, William. William is 10.